Hello, I'm Paul Stryer, and welcome to the SD-WAN self-hosted lab build video series. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to sign certificates and get the certificates installed on the correct devices so they can securely authenticate and communicate with each other. So back in the lab, as you can see, I have a copy of mPutty up on the screen, and I've opened up 3 tabs, 1.30, .32, and 34. 30 being vManage, 32 being vSmart, and 34 being vBond. Next, I'm going to switch over to a notepad that I already have 5 commands already configured on. I'm going to go to the first one where it says generate a RootCA key, and I'm going to copy this, and you can use the same exact command. Then I'm going to go back to the vManage console, and I'm going to type in vShell. The vShell command takes me back to the Linux kernel on the Viptela device. And then I'm going to type in ls-l just to show you what's inside of the directory so that you can see what's there to begin with. So after we run the next command, you can see that there's been a file added to that directory. So take note, there's only one file in there and it has nothing to do with certificates. So now let's go ahead and paste in that command that we got out of the notepad to create our RootCA. So now I'm going to paste the command we got from the notepad. It's openSSL genrsa -out and then rootca.key, and that's the file name it's going to create, and then it's a 2048-bit encryption key. Now that we've created the RootCA certificate, now I'm going to run the ls-l command again, just that you can see in that directory there's a rootca.key, which is the file name that we told it to create. So now let's return back to the notebook to grab the next command line that we'll need to create our next file. The first thing we did is create a RootCA key. This time we're going to create a RootCA certificate and generate a file called rootca.pem. So now I'm going to highlight this command line and copy it into my buffer. Returning to the vManage console that is open in vShell, I'm going to paste in this command line that we just got. 2 things to note in the command line is near the beginning it says rootca.key. That's the file it's going to go get the key from, and at the very end it's going to say rootca.pem. That's the file it's going to create. But if you notice in there, it also has my tree in there. So you can see that it says C equals US, ST equals NC, L equals RTP, and this next one is O equals my organization, and this will match my organization name that I put into my license and into the vManage. And then it says CN equals greatwhite.local, which is my domain on my DNS server. So you're going to need to make this tree match whatever it is for your lab instead of using my lab information. So the country is US, the state is North Carolina, my location is RTP, and then there is my organization name, which has to match the org name that I put in my license and in everywhere else. And then I have my CN, which is my domain or my DNS domain. So again, you need to make this match yours so that it matches your lab network. So now that I've entered that command, let's do an ls-l, and you will see that there is a new file in here. Now we have rootca.pem, whereas before we created the rootca.key. So the next thing we need to do is we need to log into our vManage in a browser so that we can get to the GUI interface of vManage. So I'm going to open up a browser and go to the address of my vManage. I'm going to log into this vManage with the default username and password of admin. Now that we're logged into the vManage dashboard and we see the GUI, now let's go over to the menus, and I'm going to open up administration and settings. And if you want to see the menu opened up so you can see the words of each one instead of the icons, go to the top little 3 lines and click on it, and the menus will open up with the words. Then I'll go to administrator settings, and then if I want to, after settings comes up to, I can click on the 3 lines in the top left again, and it closes the menus and makes it into small icons. Next, I'm going to go over to the organization name, and to the right of organization name, I'm going to click on edit, and that'll drop down the organization menu, and I'm going to type in my organization name exactly how I put it in the license and in the other places that I put it, including into the RootCA key that we created earlier. Once I get it typed in, it wants you to put in a confirmation of the organization name, and again, remember, it is case sensitive. And then I'll click save after I'm done putting in the organization name. Next, I'm going to go to the vBond, which is the second one down, and I'm going to click edit on the vBond section. When that opens up, I'm going to put in the IP address of the vBond, or I could use the DNS name, and I'm going to leave the default port, but you could change the port if you've changed the port on your vBond. Once I get it all typed in, I'll click on Save. Now that we've saved the vBond address, I'm going to go down to Controller Certificate Authorization and click Edit. Now in here, I'm going to switch it to Enterprise Root Certificate because we have our own root certificate, and then I'm going to click Proceed on the warning message. Could have left it at the default at Cisco Automated and let it go out to the internet to the SmartNet account to grab our information for our RootCA. But in this case, we're going to use a self-generated RootCA that we created earlier. And notice there's a window in here for us to paste our RootCA into this vManager. So returning to the vManage console that's still in vShell, you can see our ls-l is still there, and you can see that we need that rootca.pem. So I'm just going to type cat so I can look inside the file and put in the rootca.pem, and remember it is case sensitive because this is Linux. And then when I hit enter, it's going to show us the root certificate we signed with the RootCA key. What I'm going to do is copy from the begin line to the end line and put that into my buffer. And then I'll return back to my vManage GUI. And in the GUI where we left off, I'm going to paste that information that we just put in our buffer into here. Now we have the RootCA certificate in our vManage. So now I'm going to click on Import and Save. So the next thing in settings we want to do is go to the WAN Edge Cloud Certificate Authorized and just make sure it's in automatic, which it is already by default, but we just want to make sure it is there. So the next thing we need to do is generate a CSR file for the vManage. So I'm going to go up to the top and open the menus again so you can see them all, and go to Configuration and Certificates. Once we're in the certificate window, we need to click on Controllers at the top, and what you'll notice is the vManage is already here because we're on the vManage. So next we're going to go to the end and click on the three dots, and we want to click on the Generate CSR. So once we click the Generate CSR, it'll generate the CSR and put a pop-up on the screen, and we'll see the CSR. So for now we don't need this file, we'll come back to it later, so just go ahead and close this pop-up window. So returning back to the console of the vManage that's still in vShell, if I do an ls-l, you'll notice there's a new file in there called vManage_CSR, and that's the file we just generated while we were back in the vManager GUI. Returning back to my notepad, we're going to go down to the third line, and we're going to take the RootCA key and the rootca.pem and generate a vManage.crt from that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this line and copy it and paste it into the vManage vShell. So back at the vShell, I'm going to paste this command. Now notice that it has the vManage CSR in there, so it knows the file name of the vManage CSR. It also knows the rootca.pem, and that's that file name we created, and we also have the rootca key. You can use this command exactly how I have it here if you haven't changed any of the file names from what I've used. Just remember in the previous command you have that tree in there that you really need to make sure it fits your key. But for this one, if you're using the same file names, you can use the same exact command. Let's go ahead and hit enter and see what happens. So it did enter and it says that it took it okay. So now let's do an ls-l and see what's in our directory. So now you can see we have the vManage CRT. And that CRT file is both signed with the rootca.key and the rootca.pem file. So now I'm going to cat the vManage CRT file so that I can see the contents that are inside. And then I will copy those into my buffer so we can take those contents over to the vManage GUI and paste them in. When you're highlighting it, make sure you start at the begin line and get all 5 of those dashes at the beginning, and make sure you get all 5 dashes after the end of certificate file so that you get the whole file. So back at vManage, I'm at Configurations, Certificates, and in the Controller section, and vManage is the only one there, so we don't need to highlight it. And then I'm going to click the Install Certificate button in the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to paste in that certificate we just copied and click Install. If you click the vManage refresh, not the browser, but the vManage one in the right corner there, you can see that now it says successfully installed. So let's move on to our next step. If you go to Configurations and then go to Devices. Once you're in the Devices window, go to Controllers. When you get into the Controllers window, you'll see vManage is already there because we're on the vManage. And if you notice, the vManage is in sync. That's because we put in the certificate. So let's click on Add Controllers, and then let's add our next controller, which is vBond. So I'm going to click on vBond, and then I'm going to put in the IP address for the vBond, and then put in the username and password. In this case, the username and password right now is still on admin because I left mine at the defaults. Of course, you won't want to do that in a production network. Once you get the information in, click on Add. Next, we're going to go back to Configuration in the menu on the left, and then we're going to go to Certificates. Once we get into Certificates, we're going to go ahead and click on Controllers again, and notice now there's two, vBond and vManage, and vBond is ready for us to configure. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the three dots and click on View CSR. Once the vBond CSR window opens, go ahead and hit Control A if you're on Windows and Command A if you're on Macintosh to highlight everything in the window, including the begin and end line, and copy those into your buffer and click Close. Then we're going to switch back over to the vManage command console and go ahead and work from the vShell that's already opened in vManage. So once I'm back in the vShell, I can do an ls-l and you'll see the files that we've already been creating and working with. And now we're going to create a new file. So I'm going to do a vim to open up a editor, and I'm going to create a new file when I open the editor called vBond.csr. Once the editor is open, I'm going to right-click to paste the information into the editor, and then we'll save that information. To save the information, click Escape and then WQ Enter, and that'll save this information into the file we created when we opened the file, which was vBond.csr. If you do an ls-l, you'll see the new file, vBond.csr. If you're curious if the editor actually worked, you can do a cat space vBond.csr, all lowercase, and it will show us the contents of the file we just created in the Vim editor. We do not need to copy this into our buffer right now because we're not going to use this information, just was there for information. What we do need to do is go back to the notepad where I have the command lines already configured, and we need to create a CRT file from this CSR file. So I'm going to go to the fourth line down that says sign the vBond.csr file with RootCA and key and RootCA PIM and generate a vBond CRT file. After I copy that command line in the buffer, I'm going to return back to the vManage command line where the vShell is open. I'm going to paste that information in there. Notice that it says vBond.csr, and we have the RootCA.pim, and we have the RootCA.key. So again, you can use this exact command line if you're using the same file names that I'm using in this video. So I hit Enter on the command line, and then I'll do an ls-l again just so that we see that the file is out there. And so there you see it. We have the two vBond files. We have the vBond CSR and the CRT. So now I need the contents of that CRT file that we just created. So I'm going to type cat space vBond.crt and make sure that it's lowercase because I created it lowercase. It is case sensitive because it is on Linux. Once that is opened, I'm going to highlight the whole thing from the very first hyphen at the begin line to the last hyphen on the begin line, and then that will be in my buffer. Then from here, I'm going to return back to my vManage GUI. Back at the vManage GUI, you can see I'm at Configuration, Certificates, Controllers, and there's two items in there. I need to make sure that I highlight the vBond, click on Install Certificate, and then paste it in the pop-up window, and then click on Install. Using the vManage refresh button in the upper right-hand corner, I'll refresh it to see that it successfully synced that particular certificate. Now that we have the certificate set up on vBond and vManage, we can go ahead and set up a secure connection between the vBond and the vManager. So I'm going to go back to the command line interface of the vBond. Notice I switched to vBond, and I'm going to do a show run just to show you what's on there right now. So do show run, and we're going to go down to VPN 0. Notice that VPN 0 has no encryption on it. It is just an open interface connecting to the network. So I'm going to go ahead and go into config T, type VPN 0, then go to interface GE00. Notice I put a GE, not a G, and it's all lowercase. And then I'm going to type tunnel interface, putting us on a tunnel interface of GE00. And I'm going to type encapsulation IPsec. Then I'm going to do a commit and quit to save this to the flash, and now I have a committed interface tunnel that's encapsulated with IPsec. Once I did that encryption interface, I lost connectivity because I was using that interface to be able to get to that device. So I'm going to close that tab in mPutty, and I'm going to reopen my vBond tab in mPutty, and notice now I'm going to get a certificate message, which I didn't get before because now it is secured with IPsec. So now I'm going to log in with admin to this device. I'm going to return back to the vManage GUI, and we need to add our last controller, the vSmart controller. So to do so, I'm going to return back to the configurations menu, devices, and then controllers, and then add controller, and then from the pop-down menu, I will select vSmart. In the Add vSmart pop-up window, I'm going to put in the IP address for the vSmart, the username and password, and click Add. Now that we've added the vSmart to the Devices section, we now need to go to Configuration, Certificates, Controllers, and we need to get a copy of the CSR information. So make sure to click and highlight vSmart to make sure you have the right one. Notice it turns yellow. Go to the three dots on the right and select View CSR. Once this window opens, hit Command A or Control A to highlight the information here and copy it into your buffer, and then click Close on the pop-up window. So now that we're back to the vManage with the vShell open, I'm going to type ls-l so you can see the files that we've created already. Now we're going to create a new one. So again, like we did with vBond, we're going to create another file by using the vim editor. So I'm going to type vim, and then I'm going to type vSmart.csr. Once the empty file is open, go ahead and right click and paste the information that's in your buffer. Make sure that everything is there from the begin line to the end line, and make sure the 5 hyphens are there at the before the begin line and the 5 hyphens are at the end of the end line. Once you're done, press escape and then WQ enter to save the file. Then I'm going to do a cat vSmart.csr just to look inside to make sure everything's there and I have all those hyphens and everything in there that needs to be there. So now I need to create my vSmart.crt file. I'm going to go back to my notepad and go to that last command that we have down there, and notice that it says we're going to sign the vSmart.csr with the RootCA and the RootCA PIM and the RootCA key, and we're going to create a file called vSmart.crt. So we're going to grab that, copy that command line into my buffer. Then I'm going to return back to my vManage in shell mode, and I'm going to paste that command in. Now notice that it has the rootca.pem, and it has the rootca.key, and it has the vSmart.csr file names in there. So if you're using my file names, you can continue to use these command lines exactly the way I have them here. Once I enter the command line in, I'm going to do an ls-l just to show you that we have the new vSmart file, and there it is, vSmart.crt. Again, I need that information out of the CRT file, so I'm going to do a cat vSmart.crt. I'm going to highlight the whole thing from the very beginning of the begin line to the very end of the end line so that it's in my buffer, and I'm going to return back to my vManage GUI. Now back at vManage, I'm going to go to Configuration, Certificates, Controllers, and in the upper right hand corner I'm going to click on Install and Configure. I'm going to paste in the information into the pop-up window and say Add. Then I can click on the vManage refresh, and as I do, I'll see that it is now successfully synced the certificate. Let's click on Configuration, then Devices, and then once in Devices, click on Controllers, just to see that we have all 3 devices in there, and all 3 of them say that they are in sync. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you for future videos. This is Paul Stryer. Have a good day.